everybody, and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. I am Taylor Rockwell. Daryl is not with me in the office today, though he will be on the show later in the episode. He'll also be back in studio with me Sunday to review Manchester United v. Liverpool and probably a few other games from the weekend as well. For now, we have two interviews for you today. Up first is Crystal Dunn of the North Carolina Courage and the US Women's National Team. Crystal took time away from prepping for the SheBelieves Cup to discuss what it was like when she first got called up to the national team, who the on-field leaders are for that squad, how she adapts to playing a variety of positions, and the mental preparation it takes to compete at such a high level. After that is Daryl and myself interviewing Brian Bliss, Director of Player Personnel for Sporting KC. This was recorded live back in January at the United Soccer Coaches Convention, about an hour before the 2019 MLS SuperDraft began, so credit to Brian for sounding very calm while preparing for the draft. We get into how Sporting KC evaluate talent and decide on their draft picks, the time it takes to evaluate players, it's not as long as you think, which was surprising to us, how Sporting KC don't take glove wearing into consideration when it comes to scouting players, that's good, and Brian's work as an assistant coach for Tab Ramos and the US U20 national team as they get ready for the U20 World Cup. Obviously, this was all before Sporting KC roasted Toluca in the CONCACAF Champions League, but I'm assuming they utilized some of what Brian talks about in this interview in that game. Also worth noting that since Brian's interview was recorded on site at the convention, there's a decent amount of background noise. It's nothing intrusive, but, just so you know. Crystal's interview was not at the convention, but she was standing next to a busy road. When she was on the phone, you'll hear some traffic noise, so it's sort of a dueling background noise sort of show. So consider yourselves previewed for the episode and prepared for it as well. And with that in mind, over to me asking questions to Crystal Dunn. With me now on the line, I've got Crystal Dunn. Crystal, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
So I wanted to get into your national team career, your club career, your college career even, but I wanted to start with something a little more close to home. I saw a while back that you posted a photo of your, I believe now, husband celebrating the Super Bowl, which I assume means he's a Patriots fan, and I'm wondering, are you sure this is the life decision that you want to make? Do you want to be with a Patriots fan for the rest of your life?
It was very hard. That was almost a deal breaker for us when he told me he was a Pats fan. I mean, I grew up obviously in New York and, Giants,
Mm-hmm.
So to me, I was like, this is odd. You can't really be a Pats fan and us stay together. But, we're married now, so everything's okay.
That's good. All right, good. I'm glad we started there. But I do want to ask you then about, as you said, you grew up in New York, but you played college ball at UNC. Was that always where you wanted to end up? I'm assuming you got recruited by a fair number of institutions, but I'm wondering if UNC was always where you saw yourself.
Yeah, when I was, getting recruited and going on visits, I think a part of me wanted to splurge and take the opportunity to go and see different things. But ultimately, I knew I was going to be on the East Coast. So, going West Coast was never really an option. Mm-hmm. I think I just wanted to be closer to home. And UNC is an okay school, so everything seemed to work out perfectly. But, yes, a part of me always wanted to be on the East Coast and stay closer to home and just being closer. Yeah,
that makes sense. And obviously, it works out well. You finished your time there in 2013, which I believe is when you made your first appearance for the national team. What was that like being a college player, but then also getting that call up to the national team?
It was stressful. I tell anybody that it's an amazing opportunity to be called in at a young age, but, you're not fully prepared to be able to balance everything at that point. You just learned how to balance playing soccer at school and going to classes. And then on top of that, you add in a third team. It gets kind of crazy. So I do remember being really excited in 2013, but also extremely stressed and feeling kind of alone because no one was going through the same experience as me. So I would leave for a while and come back and have to explain to people, I'm leaving again to go to another camp. Ultimately, it's an amazing experience, and it was awesome for me, but it was quite stressful.
And that makes sense to me. And I imagine there's a little bit of pressure playing for the national team, a little bit of a target on your back. You guys, they have that reputation. But who was it? Was there one person, or was it kind of the whole team who, when you're first getting the call up, when you're first getting introduced to the squad, that maybe made you feel a little bit more welcome, maybe took away some of those nerves a little bit?
Yeah, well, I actually went in with Julia Ertz, which is incredible because her and I played on the U20s together the year before, so we were already really close and went through that whole experience together, and then we got our first call-up together as well. So me and her stick close by each other and just help each other out. But as far as the veteran players that were on the team who helped me, I would say Allie Krieger was someone who stood out, and Heather O'Reilly. They really welcomed me. We ran the beep test my first camp, and I ran right next to Allie Krieger, and she was cheering me on. And me and her had never met before, and I thought it was pretty awesome that she was just so welcoming and was, so nice enough to cheer me on, a player that she didn't know who was very young and new to the environment.
And are you the type of athlete who enjoys the beep test, or is the beep test something that you always sort of don't necessarily look forward to?
I mean, I want to find an athlete that actually says that they enjoy the beep test.
Thank you.
I don't know one till this day.
All right, that makes me feel better. I think, I ran it once in college, and that was enough for me to run it for the rest of my life. So, yes, I can't imagine doing that on the regular.
I mean, it's terrible.
But maybe it's helped you with, the fitness to be a multifaceted player, because Jill Ellis has obviously been using you in a variety of positions for the national team. Have you enjoyed that variety, or would you prefer to be in kind of one dedicated position?
Yeah, anybody would really love to just be in one position. I think there's something nice about developing and staying and learning in one position versus being thrown around, because you then have to start the whole process over again of learning and developing in a new position, So, it's made me who I am. I'm known as, Miss Versatile, so it's part of my identity. But yeah, if I had to choose, I would want to get really, really good at one position. And I think I've never really had that opportunity. I've never played a full season in only one position. So, yeah.
I didn't realize you've never had a full season in one. What is there one that you think you would most like to try to get to play an entire season?
I feel like I'm just naturally a midfielder. Mm-hmm. And again, that just comes with, the formation that we happen to be playing would be fitting for me. So if we had an opportunity to have a formation that required a wide midfielder, I think that would best suit my qualities. Mm-hmm. But, I think teams now don't really play like a 4-4-2 straight across, and not as often as they did probably back then. So, yeah.
But I do think, to your point about your versatility, which is incredibly impressive, I think we've seen games, my co-host Daryl and I have watched games where I think you played, literally 3 different positions in one game. What kind of preparation does that take? Do you have to do you have to know exactly what to do as a right back, but then also as a right midfielder, but then also as a left back? Do you have to really do the prep for 3 different spots?
It's not even prep, really. I mean, yeah, for any preparation is obviously golden. Mm-hmm. The way you get really good at something is obviously the constant repetition and the reps in that position you will be playing. But I try to keep things as simple as possible if I know it could be a game that I'm playing multiple positions, because you just have to go back to the basics. It has to come down to you just knowing the game, knowing where you want to play the ball, where you want to end up, and how can you really impact the game regardless of where you are. So. I try not to overwhelm myself. There are games that I'm like, oh man, a lot is happening. I'm in different positions, and it does get to me at times. But I do think, oh, that's really loud. Sorry. I do think that for me, it's just keeping it simple. That's the best way to be is not overwhelm yourself and just play.
I think that makes sense. I think this call is representative of that. You've kept it simple. I'm assuming you just stepped outside and now you appear to be next to a major highway.
Yes. Sorry about that.
Oh no, it's great. Again, it's always nice to be able to hear. We've definitely got some cell phone connections from around the world that are slightly dicey. So traffic we can definitely handle. I wanted to ask about how you all plan to handle the upcoming SheBelieves Cup. I believe that starts next week. In my mind, I think I sent you. I think I sent in some questions previously, and they were kind of in the wake of that loss to France. And I'm wondering if that is sort of sticking with you all as you head into SheBelieves. Are you sort of looking at this as a statement tournament to remind everybody who the U.S. is, or is it not necessarily that necessary to do that?
For me personally, I always kind of look at a loss as I don't think you need to completely change everything after one loss. I think you can always look at a loss and take away the things that you know you can get better at and take away the good things that you did decently well in that game, and you just have to move forward. I think it was good that we played Spain right after France because Spain was another top opponent, and we kind of went into that game thinking like, forget what we did last game and just on to the next, and I think the SheBelieves tournament that we're going to step into is against three top opponents, and it's going to be another test. And I think we shouldn't go in thinking, oh my gosh, like what happened against France, like could happen here. Like we kind of have to go in with the mentality of we know what we're good at, we know what we can do, and it's going to be a challenge, but we got to just keep pushing forward.
And you all obviously know what you're good at. It seems like because it's the U.S. women's national team, you all have the reputation you do. You've won all the World Cups you've won. As I said earlier, it does feel to me like that means you necessarily have a target on your back. Is it the case that even like smaller teams or lesser known teams, less regarded teams, do you feel like they consistently raise their game when they're playing against you all?
Yeah, definitely. I would say it's even hard to scout teams because the way that they play against other opponents is completely different to how they would play us. So we kind of have all this preparation going into a game. And we're like, this team is going to do this, this team is going to do this. And you're like, okay. And then the game comes and it's actually like a different formation or a different tactic against us. So, we just have to be prepared for whatever. We know we have a target on our back. We know people are going to rise to the occasion to play against us. So we're just always prepared.
So I want to stick with that for a second. Like, do you remember a specific time that happened where you all came out and you're like, oh, they're definitely going to be in a back three, and then suddenly they were not in a back three and you had to adjust? And if so, how do you do that in game on the fly?
I can't remember any specific team. I'm sure it's happened so often that I'm like, it's normal,
Yeah, that makes sense.
But we just, like you just said, we adjust on the fly. We just go with it. Coaches are telling us information from the sideline, and then it's up to us to really execute what they're saying and really try to make that change as quickly as possible and get everybody on board.
And who are the ones, generally speaking, in those situations who are on the field sort of helping relay those instructions and make sure everybody's on the same page?
It would be Jill, and it would be our other coach, Tony, our assistant coach, and of course our goalkeeper coach as well. So it's a combination of just a lot of people, relaying the messages, making sure everyone has the info that they need in order to feel as comfortable as possible making a change.
But is there one player on the team who you maybe like people would look to sort of relay instructions, look to think like, am I doing this right? Or is it usually just kind of the coaches and then everybody's worried about their own individual performances?
I would say we have like a pretty strong leader in every single line. We would have, it's probably like a Becky Sarabron who's kind of organizing the back line to just make sure we know that if the other team had changed formations or anything, that we know what the front line is doing so that our back four can be in sync, And then in the midfield, of course, there's Julie, who definitely is such a leader, and she's down the center of the pitch. So she does a good job of just relaying all the info to the midfielders. And then our front line, you have Alex and Kino both and Tobin up there as well. So I think it's just important to have a leader in every single line so that the message can get across very easily.
Much more still to come from my interview with Crystal Dunn, including an intrusive motorcycle. You have that to look forward to. But for now, I wanted to let you know about today's sponsor, Roughneck Scarves. They are the official scarf providers of U.S. Soccer, Major League Soccer, the USL, and the NCAA. For the purposes of today's show, it's worth remembering that they also have U.S. Women's National Team Players Association scarves. That means you can get Alex Morgan, Becky Sauerbrunn, Kristen Press, Julie Ertz, many other names, and obviously Crystal Dunn is in there too. They do not have her like a representation of her playing the 36,000 different positions that she's capable of playing and oftentimes does play, but you can still rep your Crystal Dunn support by getting a Crystal Dunn scarf. You can also get the Total Soccer Show scarf if you wanted to. You can also design a custom scarf. They've got that feature as well. So be sure to check out all of their options, including, as I said, their NCAA options. You've got March Madness coming up. It's late February. It's around the corner. So maybe if you want to wear a scarf, it's probably still going to be cold around the country when that tournament begins. You can get a scarf for the college that you're going to be supporting, or maybe the team that you've picked to go the farthest in your bracket challenge. And best of all, if you do get a college scarf or a Crystal Dunn scarf or any of the scarves on offer, except for their custom options, you can get 20% off by going to roughneckscarves.com and using the code TOTALSoccerShow, all one word, all uppercase, at checkout for 20% off anything you see. Once again, that's RUFFNECK scarves.com, and the promo code is TOTALSoccerShow for 20% off. Thank you very much, as always, to Roughneck Scarves for sponsoring today's episode. Now back to my chat with Crystal Dunn. I also wanted to ask about the workers. From your experiences in national team training, who are the players or the player who you think are maybe the hardest workers in the squad?
I mean, obviously, this is such an elite group of people, so you can't really not be working hard in practice or anything and expect to be called back.
Yeah, true.
But
true.
I would say Carly Lloyd. She has this just passion in training every single time. She always wants to be the best. She wants to be the top forward, top scorer in trainings. And it's incredible to see because she's obviously such a legend, and she's been so successful on this team that she is continuously working to get better. At her age, she's like, oh, I'm not done getting better. I can always improve on stuff. So I would say she's constantly working and trying to outwork everybody.
And on the flip side, is there anybody in there who's like, oh, no, I already did that sprint. I don't need to do that one?
Not really, no.
That's kind of what I figured, again, to your point, that I guess you don't become the best team in the world by having people maybe take a sprint or two off. So that makes sense to me.
Yeah, exactly.
But I also wanted to talk about your individual preparation for a minute, because you've got the NWSL season coming up. You've got She Believes. Then you've got the World Cup. How do you approach all of those different sort of challenges? Is it difficult not to look ahead to that World Cup, or is it just kind of focusing on the next game ahead of you?
I literally live so day by day that this is obviously a huge year, biggest year for me in my career, but ultimately I know that I can't get too far ahead of myself, because in order for me to be exactly where I need to be come World Cup time, I need to sort out the day by day stuff, So it's very easy for me to just focus on training today. Great. Was it good? Great. If it wasn't, that's okay. Tomorrow's another day. And that's just kind of my whole rhythm of things, is just not getting too far ahead of myself and just enjoying the journey, enjoying where I am, and really living in the moment.
And is that something that you're like, is that just comes naturally to you, that if, say, you do have a really bad day in training or you miss a sitter, are you just able to really just put it out of your head, or do you have to kind of do the exercises to put yourself in a position where you're really then able to let it go? Most days I'm pretty decent at it. I don't really have to change anything, but I think there are days, of course there's going to be days that one training is really going to stick with you and it's harder to kind of get out, or one game is going to stick with you and it's just harder to kind of let go. But ultimately, I think I've done very well with it over the last couple of years. It's just really not getting so down on myself and not thinking that one game really defines anybody. I think it's important to feel down about a game or feel like you could have done better, but everyone's going to have a bad game. And if you hang your head too low for too long, then you're not really preparing yourself for the next game that you could actually do even better and make an impact. That makes 100% sense to me. So we've talked about the versatility in your preparation, in your sort of in the way you play the game. I'm wondering, with that in mind, did that factor into your decision to try to play or to go play abroad, that you wanted to just experience different things?
Yeah, there was a part of me that was, I knew 2017 was going to be, an in-between year. There's no World Cup, there's no real major national team events going on. So it was a year that I knew I could dabble with, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And I was just looking for a change. I was looking for a new challenge. The NWSL obviously is a very high intensity league, a lot of transition moments. And with me being an athletic player, it's obviously very fitting. I'm like, oh, great. You're expecting me to run a lot. That's awesome. Like, okay. But I think the English League challenged me in a different way that I don't think the NWSL could ever challenge me. So it was just nice to break free from my normal rhythm and just kind of step foot in a different environment and really just give it a whirl, just dive deep, both feet in and see what it was going to do for my career.
And I remember reading way back when, I think it was in Howler, they had done a profile of your time at Chelsea. And I wanted to go back to, was it difficult, though, to make that adjustment, to move to England, to kind of leave the family behind and be over there? And how did you go about sort of dealing with that homesickness?
Yeah, it was really hard. A little bit at first. I think, just it's the initial shock of like, okay, I'm really all the way across the pond. Like, I'm in a different country. I'm living by myself. And then you start to get into your normal rhythm. You start to realize, like, I'm here for a job. I'm here to get better. And that is what I'm, sacrificing my family and my friends back home for. And once I was able to kind of just dig deep and, like I said, dive all the way in and really immerse myself into this new environment, I enjoyed the girls. I enjoyed the training. I enjoyed so much about London. It's obviously an amazing city. So it's not like I was in some random city that no one's heard of. Like, there were so many cool things to do. And I just felt like I really tried to live the life of a Londoner and just get better as well, just playing a game that I love to play.
And given the reputation and the history of the U.S. women's national team, when you go and play in England, are eyebrows raised like over there? Are people looking at you like, "Ooh, like this is a U.S. national team player"? Like, "Oh, she's a big deal"?
Yeah, well, there's just so much expectations. Whenever someone says, "Oh, you're a U.S. women's national team player," like there's obviously high standards that people already have set for you, before they probably even have seen you play. Mm-hmm. So I think going into my first game, I knew there was going to be some, not pressure, but there was going to be eyes on me to see what I was capable of doing and how I fit in well with the team. And but I didn't let it kind of scare me. I just played my game. And again, I knew going into that whole season that there's going to be a game or two that I don't play well, and that's totally fine. I just got to keep improving and keep growing and keep forming into this new environment.
And then when you were playing over there, are U.S. coaches keeping like pretty consistent tabs? Are they watching your games? Are they like texting you every morning to see how you're doing?
They weren't really texting me so much to see like what I was doing. It was more so when I got back into camp, when I flew back to the U.S., we would check in with each other and they'd ask me how it was and just go over some things. But for the most part, I felt like I was very much able to live my own life and really they trusted me with my own career, if that makes sense. They weren't like watching me and making me feel like, okay, you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to do this. It was more so like they supported my decision and they just let me be. And then when I came into camp, it was about keeping me up to speed on the team and that was basically it.
And I promise I'm not leading you into like a clickbaity headline here, but I'm curious, is that something that you would recommend young players try, that they go try to play in England or France or somewhere in Europe just to experience those sort of differences in style and approach?
Sorry, that's really loud.
That's all good.
Some people have some really crazy cars out here. Yes, I do think that I had a very, very good experience playing overseas. So I would tell anyone that I had the time of my life and it changed me in so many ways that I probably wouldn't have been changed if I stayed in the U.S. So, of course, I say hands down, go challenge yourself, live in a different country and really experience what it's like to, really like get to know yourself, Mm-hmm. But I will say last year I was very, very exhausted, like middle of the NWSL season because I didn't have an off season. So I was like basically playing 2 seasons in a row, it felt like. Mm-hmm. So I would just tell anybody, if you're going to make that decision, just know that it's not going to be easy. Like physically, you're going to have a moment of feeling like you can't keep going. But again, that's challenges that you have to overcome, So I enjoyed it because it really did change me and it improved my game. So I'm really fortunate to have had such a positive experience playing over there.
So, and then like now we're back to the beep test of just do the beep test a couple more times. Maybe the fatigue isn't quite as bad potentially.
Yeah, exactly.
So then are you looking to maybe play abroad again, or are you pretty happy to stay in NWSL and play with the national team for the time being?
At some point, I do think I'd go overseas. My husband's French, so a part of me is really trying to take in the culture. So I always told him that, you know, in my later years, I do feel like I would want to play in France at some point and, you know, really learn the language. I'm already studying French now, and it's hard to do when you're not really hearing it all the time. So the easiest way for me to have really learned the language is to live there and only be speaking French. So, you know, it'd be fun.
Mm-hmm. And is there a lure of like playing in the Champions League? Like, is the French league the one that maybe you look to as that's the one that I want to try to conquer, to challenge myself?
There's really no particular league that I feel like I would want to play in Champions League with for. I mean, I know obviously Lyon is like top team on the women's side in Europe, and they win basically consecutive years in a row. I just think for my personal reason is just really to learn the language and play for a good club. So whichever club that would be in my later years, but when I'm deciding to go back over, it would just have to be a good fit for me, and, you know, all the right things have to line up.
That makes sense. In the meantime, you've got some other games to play. As I said, She Believes next week. For you personally, like when you've got a game, when it's a match day, what is your preparation like? Do you like listen to the same song? Is there a particular artist you like? Is there a particular breakfast you like? How do you get ready for a game?
For me, my game days are, let me start off saying I am not very superstitious. So my game days tend to look kind of different from game to game just because I don't have to wake up. I don't have to wear the same clothes or anything like that. Or I just kind of wake up and try to put myself in the best mood possible. You know, I love to listen to music. I'm a huge music person. So for me, it's always just like getting in good vibes and focusing on the game, but not overwhelming myself with too many ideas, you know, just enjoying the day as it goes on. And when it comes down to it, just getting myself focused and ready to perform.
And is there anybody in the locker room, the national team locker room that is, who is particularly superstitious?
I don't really think anyone is like so buttoned up about it. You know, I do think people have their like go-tos. Maybe it's the same stretching that they do every game day or things like that. But I don't think anyone's like so crazy where all of a sudden something doesn't work out and they're like, whoa, my game is going to be so bad today because I didn't eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
All right.
Like,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier, final question for you. This is going to be the biggest year of your career. Yeah. Like, what does that look like then for you? Is it World Cup champion and NWSL champion, or would you take World Cup above all else?
Oh, don't make me choose. Obviously, I've waited a really long time to be able to be in a World Cup. So, obviously, the World Cup is going to end well before the NWSL season is going to end. So, my focus right now really just has to be preparing for the World Cup. You know, it's a major event that not everyone gets to be a part of, and I missed out on it last World Cup, and I just feel like without getting myself too ahead of the game, I really just want to focus on being the best player I can be now to put myself in the best position to impact the games in the World Cup and then hopefully on to the NWSL season.
Well, that makes sense. Crystal, thank you so much for taking the time. I do have to say, it feels like your versatility factors into this interview because I'm guessing that you've been moving around a lot to try to avoid like the noise, and so I do appreciate that. You've done a very good job.
Oh, thank you. There was a couple of cars that I'm like, okay, they didn't have to do that. That was really unnecessary, but yes, I tried.
All right, well, thank you again. I'll let you get back to training or whatever else you may be doing, but we really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, bye.
Thank you very much one more time to Crystal Dunn for taking so much time to come on the program. She's got the She Believes Cup right around the corner. She's got lots of preparation to do, so we very much appreciate her time and her willingness to combat traffic to answer those questions. Up next will be our conversation with Brian Bliss, the Director of Player Personnel for Sporting KC. But before we get to that, I wanted to let you know about today's sponsor, Away Days Football, or just Away Days if you prefer. They offer a variety of different very cool options for for soccer fans and clothing fans alike, because they've got hoodies, they've got hats, they've got very stylish shirts for you to check out. But then they've got the more like soccer-specific stuff, specifically the one we all know and love, the Mystery Kit or the Mystery Kit 3-month subscription. Basically, you sign up, you give them your size, you receive a Mystery Kit. It's a 100% authentic and brand new jersey from smaller clubs from a variety of countries. Could be from England, Spain, Sweden, Scotland, Germany, many, many others. I think I have Greece and Argentina. I forget who Daryl has, but he's not here, so it doesn't matter. But it's a very cool service because it connects you to teams you might not otherwise be that familiar with. And then occasionally you get to wear that jersey when, say, they're playing in Copa Libertadores or in the Europa League, even the Champions League on occasion. But you can then kind of go find random players. It kind of connects you to a game in a different way than you might expect. But if that's not your style, they've also got the Mystery Patch, which features European leagues, competitions, both big and small, the official league and competition patches, both current and past, again, 100% authentic and brand new. So you can either sign up for yourself or sign up for a friend, a coworker, a colleague, your significant other, whomever. If they're into cool soccer stuff, then they'll be in to Away Days. Best of all, they're offering Total Soccer Show listeners a 15% off discount. Go to awaydaysfootball.com and use the promo code TSS to get 15% off. Once again, that's awaydaysfootball.com, and the code is TSS for 15% off. Thank you, as always, to Away Days for sponsoring today's episode. Now, on to our conversation with Brian Bliss, the Director of Player Personnel for Sporting KC, once again recorded prior to the 2019 MLS SuperDraft at the United Soccer Coaches Convention.
Brian, thank you for taking the time to sit with us on draft day.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
So, first question, sorry, Tyler.
Yep.
First question, should you not be doing draft stuff?
Yeah, I mean, all the work gets really done prior to even going to the combine, and then, we button things up as we get closer to the actual draft day. And, yesterday we had our powwow, as all teams do, and we're kind of ready, and, we got some free time.
I did enjoy, we kept Brian waiting for a moment. He said, it's fine. We're not, 17th, is it, you're picking?
No, we're picking 21st, but I'm thinking of around the 17th pick, I should be at my desk.
That's when you need to be there.
Table.
Right. So we got him until, maybe the 15th pick, and then he can hustle back.
We don't want to get in trouble with Peter Vermees.
Not so much.
We're fine.
I definitely don't. That's a man I feel like I would be terrified of. Even if I never met him, I'll still be terrified of him.
So the one thing we really want to get into the details with you about is how you scout potential Sporting KC players. And I know you mentioned off-air to us that you have essentially a player profile, right? So I understand the concept of having a player profile, and then you go and see a player maybe for the first time or second time, and you think, does he fit our profile? Is he a potential Sporting KC player? But giving away as much as you can you get into the details of exactly what that looks like? Is it a piece of paper with a list of attributes? Or
yeah, look, I think every club probably has a similar concept. They go by positions, or they list 5, 6, 7 qualities that they like in those positions, and maybe it goes as deep as maybe size and weight and things like that if you want to really go into detail. But it's probably more about the characteristics of the player, and then typically there's a lot of clubs will age restrict it because they're building a squad in a certain way, and they don't want to go outside a certain boundary in ages or underneath a certain boundary in the ages. But that doesn't necessarily mean it kills any kind of a deal when those things fall outside the boundaries. Yeah. But you're never going to get all of the boxes ticked off in your characteristics list, but the main ones, you would like to see those, and then you can kind of be a little bit more flexible as you view a player, or players get presented to you, or you scout a player. You can be a little bit more flexible within those.
Can we pick a position, and maybe if you could give us a couple of the attributes you look for? At random, right back.
Sure.
So if you're going out looking for a new Sporting KC right back to fit the Sporting KC style, the Sporting KC system, could you give us a couple of things that you would specifically, that must-haves essentially?
Yeah, look, if anybody watches our team and sees the way we play, it's not a mystery. You look at Graham Zuzi, who's ex-national team player, and is obviously a little bit older now, but if you look at his skill set, that's really what we're looking for. Somebody that has a good motor / engine, all right, can get up the line and also recover, all right. More than average or better than average technically, because in our system of play, our outside backs touch the ball probably the third most of any player on the field. Yeah. And that includes Illy Sanchez, who's our pivot in the midfield, and our center backs, who tend to start the flow of the game from the back. So those three guys, your center mid, our center backs and our outside backs, they tend to touch the ball a lot. So we want a guy that's efficient on the ball. So in the end, we're probably looking for a converted winger who's good 1v1 and can take guys on, has a burst of speed, but yet has a bit of endurance as well, and better than average technically. So those are the skill sets. We also don't want a tall, lanky guy either who's got a higher center of...
Pointed at me when he said
No, but it's true. We don't want a tall, lanky guy whose center of gravity is a little bit higher who can't deal with the defending stuff either.
Right.
And that's got to be, first and foremost, you're a defender. Right? And granted, lately we've been a good possession team and when keep the ball a lot, but you still got to be able to defend.
First of all, I don't think he did point at you when he said tall and lanky. I feel like you just wanted people to think that you're tall and lanky, so that's one. Two, so you listed a lot of criteria there. Yeah. How long does it take you to, in your mind, like properly evaluate a player? Because I don't think I could watch a game and be like, yep, I've seen all of those attributes. Like, does it take you a couple of viewings?
No, you would laugh. I'm telling you right now, as long as we've been doing this, I'm not kidding you. Live is not always what we do. We do a lot. I mean, the scouting has changed because of Y-Scout and Instat and all that. And you hate to say it, video is the way of the world or the way of the future. But that's your initial point of contact is always the video, and that gets you excited.
Right? So you have the premium Y-Scout subscription?
We all do, yeah. And we all look at it, and we get a feel for the guy after 20 minutes. I'm telling you, I hate to say it, I can tell you in 20 minutes if I like a guy.
Really?
I swear to God. I'm not saying I would take the guy in 20 minutes, but I can say in 20 minutes pretty much, you know what, I like this guy, let me dig deeper. Or in 20 minutes, I don't like the guy. And it sounds judgmental, but we don't have the luxury to be digging deep into each guy to determine whether you're going to like a guy or not. You either do or you don't. And when you've been doing it as long as Peter, myself, and some guys in the league, you can get a feel for it right away. He's not my guy.
Yeah.
You know?
But can you have those moments when, like, I don't know, say the player woke up late, had a bad breakfast, was just a little bit out of it. Can you see that in the performance, and does that mean, like, no, you're done? Or can you sort of look past some of those things to be like, oh, but he had a really good first touch. That tells me that he can do that.
Exactly. I can see a play that happens, how he solved it, and then he could have 10 stinker plays right in a row, but because he did something that really got me going,
I see. Okay.
Early on, maybe in the clips or even in the 15th minute of a clip or something where he got out of trouble and showed a burst of speed or whatever, you say, you know what, he's got something, let me watch now more. He may make 10 more mistakes in a row and you say he's not my guy, but because of one or two things that happened earlier, you're going to be glued to that guy a little bit more.
That makes sense to me. Yeah. And then I mean this sincerely, even if it sounds like a joke, but we've been watching Sunderland Till I Die on Netflix, and there's a clip where they have their scouts watching a game, and then one of the scouts is like, oh no, he's wearing gloves. That's not the player for us. Like, is that really a thing, or is that like an outdated way of thinking?
It could be an outdated way of thinking. Who knows? Maybe the guy had a hand surgery and he had stitches on his head. I don't know, man. But I wouldn't judge a guy based on gloves.
That's good. Yeah. That's good.
No, I would not. I would not. Matter of fact, I have probably gone the other way. I've seen a cold weather game and I see the guy, everybody's got like Under Armours on and gloves on, and I got a guy out there that's short sleeves and nothing, and I'm like, that guy's tough.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Plus, you all have the heated field coming, right? So you don't even need to worry about gloves anymore. There we go.
I also know that you work with the U20s, right?
Correct.
Am I correct in thinking you're an assistant coach with the U20s?
Yeah, I've been doing that for 4 cycles, 8 years.
Wow. Okay. So you work closely with Tab Ramos on that. Do you do sort of scouting for potential U20 players, or is that more of a coaching in sessions once the roster's together?
Yeah, that's in session type stuff. My role with Tab is basically because I've known him for 25 years and we have a good relationship. He brought me on board when he first got hired. We have a good understanding, good working relationship, but he's point man on just about everything. I'm a sounding board, because I know a lot of players and I've seen a lot of players. I'm a sounding board for him more than anything. In camp, when we're in camp, I do a lot of opposition scouting and preparing those scouting reports when we're going to play. Doesn't matter, Colombia or Japan or whatever, and we share the workload in that regard because he's got to focus on other stuff.
Can I ask about that? So with the U20 World Cup coming up, we haven't had the draw yet, right? The draw hasn't been made yet. Once the group stages are set, will that be then part of your job will be to look at the 3 other teams in the group? Yeah,
Tab will assign. We have other guys that work with the 20s as well, and depending on, Tab will survey who's available, and, I already know that I should be available. Tab will assign a team per assistant coach, and it'll be our responsibility to dig up the work and know the players and be able to present the materials to the team once we're in camp.
Can you tell us a little bit like what those materials?
I was wondering that too. I was like, how elaborate are we getting here? Is it like his throw-ins are weak? Like how
is it?
How
like
far
a
down
big
are we
dossier?
going?
Is it like bullet points? Is it diagrams? Is it video clips? I'm really interested to know what that looks like.
It's everything. It typically is we don't want to go too in depth because to be honest with you, players, it doesn't matter if you're 14 or you're 19 or 20 or you're 30. Stats will tell you your attention span is only so long. So to go and give them a whole dossier of stuff, these guys are sleeping, right?
When the players see it.
Yeah, so we really, we've kind of got it down to a science. Any PowerPoint presentation that has slides, that has maybe still photos in it with some drawings in it, and then, bullet points, plus then the video to accompany it to basically reinforce what you just gave them in the PowerPoint. If you go beyond 14, 15 minutes, you're done. I mean, you go any longer than that, it's like, wow, these guys are like checked out.
Yeah.
Right? So you got to, it's unfortunately, it's the way it is.
Yeah.
It's quick hits.
That makes sense. And then is that the thing, like, you'll see it sometimes when a player's about to sub in on TV, you'll see like the one coach like flipping through the notebook and showing him like stills. Is that the same thing? Is it kind of even more condensed version?
That's all restarts. Everybody's got every restart, not rehearsed, but diagrammed out. So if you're coming in for somebody, you better know what that guy's job is on the restarts, whether it's a defensive free kick from the sideline to a defensive corner kick, offensive corner kick, free kick offensively at the top of the box. You got to know where you're at. That's all scripted. So everybody thinks it's not in tune with it, that when a guy goes to hit a restart, guys are just randomly showing up in certain areas of the field. No, you know where you're supposed to be, so you got to know that. So that's what the coach is doing. He's flipping through and saying, hey, make sure, that's where you're at.
That makes sense. Do you have, like, maybe this is too specific, but do you have a game in mind where, like, you scouted something, you spotted something, you saw this in the opponent, and then it was exploited, you all got, like, a goal or got the result that sort of, like, made you extra celebrate a little bit harder?
Yeah, I can give you an example.
Yeah, yes,
please.
It was dead true. It didn't come off quite like planned, but it worked. In Turkey, under 20s, okay, we played France in group play. It was our third game. It was the third game. And I believe we tied that game, but we were down. All right, we had a free kick play that we had been rehearsing for, I don't know, a year, or at least a year and a half. It wasn't anything out of this world, but it was a little bit misdirection type of thing. And we noticed that France left a big hole there. So we made sure that our players didn't stand in that area to drag players in there. And it was late in the game, in the 80-something minute, and we said, run the play! The guys were looking at us, what do you mean run the play? No, run the play! So they ran it.
Yeah.
Didn't quite, the first pass didn't quite come off, but the second pass solved it
Yeah.
to the guy. The guy cleaned it up for him. Boom, we scored a goal on it. So we looked at each other and said, man, a year and a half's worth of work. It was a good timing for that one. And it worked. It was. It was just a play here, and a guy wall passed it behind the wall at the top of the box, and our other guy ran off it and ran in, boom, knocked it in the goal.
Can you remember the year and the players involved?
Would have been our 93 age group, so that would have been Turkey under 20s, Turkey World Cup under 20s would have been 2013, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And I can't
before
think
my time knowing about
the guy that scored the goal too was a not a Padiadoras, Dienza Force player from Northern California who ended up scoring a goal. I don't know where his career's gone now, but he was he's the one that made the run off of it, the misdirection, and whacked it in the goal.
That'll work.
So, yeah.
And with those two positions for you, do you ever have an inclination to be like, hey, Tab, get some more Sporting KC guys in there? Get some Soap Park Rangers guys in there.
You try to be respectful of it, and we do have some good players in the system, and he's well aware of them, and I can stump a little bit, but you can't oversell it too much, but it helps the value of our players when they're in the national team, so it's all good for everybody.
That makes sense to me. That makes sense to me.
I mean, Jalen Lindsay's a good example, right?
Yeah, Jalen, and then he's in there. And look, Tab likes Busio too. Although
really?
he's 2 years younger than he should be for the under 20 age group. Tab likes him too, and there's a possibility that if he has a good spring, that Tab will break the mold and take a guy that's even younger into the group. We did it with Josh Sargent last cycle.
Yes.
And that was really the first time we or he has done that, really gone outside the box with a younger guy.
So it's not impossible that, say, Busio gets 2 World Cups in
not at all.
2019.
I'd be all right with that.
Yeah.
But speaking of those younger guys, like, what do you all feel that you all are doing that maybe other clubs aren't in terms of identifying and developing these players to the point where it does feel like they're able to come in and play regular minutes for an MLS side and not look that young, not look that inexperienced?
Just basically paying the families and the players under the table.
But that'll do it. There we go.
Yeah, I don't think we're doing
interview over. We're good.
No,
all right.
I don't think we're doing anything differently. I would say in that space we're a little more aggressive maybe than some other clubs, but we have to be because our geographic location, our demographics in the city don't lend us to what L.A., New York, Houston, maybe Miami has in their demographic makeup. So we have to go outside that, and we're a little bit more aggressive in that space of identifying players that fall outside the MLS territories and trying to recruit those players in. If we solely relied on what's in the Kansas City area and our territory, I still think we would be good and competitive because we have some good players there. But I think augmenting that with some guys that we don't typically have with that makeup has been good. But we've been aggressive in that space.
Right. I read a theory, I heard a theory. Sam Steskel, the MLSsoccer.com writer, he had a theory that maybe Sporting KC was quite good at telling young players, all right, here's your potential path to being in the starting 11. Like, here's a guy that's in front of you, but in 2 or 3 years, you could be the guy that replaces him. And I wonder, with younger players, do those conversations happen? They're you say hey, your future could be this.
Yeah.
Stick with us. We've got this laid out for you.
Yeah, we do. Those are some of our strengths, and it's not it's not words either. Peter's backed it up in the past by playing other guys and playing younger guys. I think Red Bulls too, when they sell that to their players, they've demonstrated too. They're leading the league in homegrown minutes, so it's not BS when somebody says, "Hey, I'm going to do this for you." Okay, you've got to do the work too, and you've got to prepare yourself and keep developing as you are. And if you are, you're going to get these opportunities. It's just not words. It's backed up. So it's not really fluff. We've done it and we backed it up. But it's still not an easy sell.
Why can't other teams do it?
I think they can. It's just whether they're committed to it. One thing I think we have an advantage of. Look, Peter's demonstrated in his time in Kansas City that he's done good work. Therefore, he's getting long-term commitment from the ownership group. And yes, he still has to win on Saturday and Sunday, but he's not hell-bent on it every week like some teams that have been down in the doldrums and need results every week. The coach isn't willing to maybe risk some of that. Peter's got a little bit more clout, credibility with our ownership group. He's earned that. And he's got a long-term deal, so he can maybe, I don't want to say take more chances, but he can take a little bit more risk than some other coaches.
So as we mentioned, we don't want to take up too much more of your time, but I wanted to ask you about today. We're recording this before the draft. People will probably be listening to this after the draft, would be my guess, unless we get really good at editing really fast. How do you all approach the draft, given that you have the the development teams that you have, the way you've approached youth? What do you look for when it comes to the draft?
Yeah, we're looking for somebody. Obviously, positional specific needs are always a priority if a guy is in that position that you feel can make it. If you don't, then you got to try to go with best available at the time you're picking, and hopefully that guy can break through. Obviously, with the way the league's gone in the last 4 to 5 years, I don't want to say watered down college soccer. College soccer really hasn't changed. The top players are the top players. It's just that the MLS has grown so much, the gap is widening.
All right. And in terms of your preparation for today, is it a stressful day? Is it are you up late? Or, you're sitting here 40 minutes before the draft starts, so I'm guessing you're not that stressed.
You look well rested.
No, I'm fine. Look, years passed when I worked in Kansas City the first time around, and then I moved to Columbus, and the draft was more of a viable mechanism to stock your roster. Yeah, we put more time into it. We put more stress into it. We, tried to hedge our bets. Is this team going to take this guy and sit around and try to armchair quarterback it? Now we just sit back and say, you know what? We've got our list of guys. If this pool of 4 guys is available, this is who we're taking with our 21st pick.
There we are.
So it's a little less stressful than in the past.
All right, well, hopefully we get you back by the 17th pick. But Brian Bliss, thank you so much for taking the time. Daryl, any other questions? Sorry, I didn't want to jump in there.
I just want to also say thank you for taking the time to
no problem. I've enjoyed it.